Welcome to EWA's FIN LYT podcast. EWA is a fee-only RIA based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We hope all listeners of this podcast will benefit as we deep dive into complex financial topics that we will make simplified for you. And we hope that this really serves as a catalyst so that you can make the best financial planning decisions for your family and also save time. Welcome, everyone, to today's FIN LYT podcast, joined here by Jamison Smith. And today we're talking about what a millennial couple needs to think about saving for retirement, specifically how much of a nest egg should someone in their 30s that's a high income earning physician, we're going to use as an example, save for retirement. So initially, if we've rewind 5-10 years ago, there was a lot of talk around the $1 million number. Now inflation has really kicked in. And by the time someone that's, 35 now is 65, you'll have lost about 2.5 times your purchasing power. So obviously that $1 million figure, we need to recalibrate and educate people on, what they should be targeting. So, James, let's talk about, a physician family that's making $500,000. So, break down, what would they be taking home after, retirement and taxes? Like, what would they actually be taking out of their paycheck?
So gross income $500,000. Obviously, some taxes come out, probably maxing out retirement plans. Ends up being 25-ish thousand a month, that range after taxes of income. And then, let's just talk. I would say generally, a lot of this depends on your spending. Let's just say, generally speaking, I'd say most people in that range, it's very similar. So, maybe, they have a mortgage, maybe they have student loans, fixed expenses could be $10,000-$12,000 a month, half of that. And then there's some discretionary spending. We're really going to dial in how much should they save to get to that, that number of 65 to replicate spending. Yeah.
So the first thing we got to do is we got to figure out, okay, let's fast forward at 65. A couple factors that they were used to spending their money on will be gone, right? So their mortgage should be paid off. So let's just say that's $5,000 a month. Now they'll still have property taxes. So let's say that's actually
$1,000.
Yeah, but that's $4,000 a month that's no longer needed on the table. Let's say they had school loans, that both doctors had school loans. Those probably are going to get forgiven in 10 years. So their money temperature would, definitely have absorbed that money. So we're not going to take that out of the calculation because that would go to lifestyle after the school loans or go to savings. And then, you mentioned $23,000 a month net. So we'll go with that. So we take $4,000 off for the mortgage. So now we're at $19,000. We're going to say they're saving, they have 2 kids. So they're saving for college, $2,000 a month. So now we're down to $17,000. We'll say they're saving
insurances,
some other savings, we'll say another $2,000. So let's just arrive at $15,000 a month. And then we could go further and say they're not going to need all that income because their kids are out of the house, so down to 13. But then when you go to retire, you have to realize first and foremost, you have more time. The more time you have, the more money you're going to spend. So we would go right back up to 15. So I think $15,000 a month for a lot of people say you're going to need 80%. 60%, 80%, 100%, suppose you're 120% of income replacement. Now for physicians, it's really, you're starting late, so typically you're saving really aggressively, and when you retire, you don't need to save money anymore. So you can back out a lot of these expenses. So we're going to arrive and assume in today's dollars, that's $15,000 a month. So if this family is 35 years old, the husband and wife are 35 years old, in today's dollars, $15,000 a month. We fast forward that to 65. That same $15,000 a month is the equivalent to $36,000 a month, just assuming a regular 3% inflationary increase. If inflation is higher, they're going to need more. If inflation is lower, a little bit less. So $36,000 a month is what this couple should be planning on spending in retirement at 65, which is the same thing as $15,000 would be today. A 30-year gap there. So that's an annualized amount of $432,000. So obviously, the old age of I need $1 million, that wouldn't even be 3 years worth of income replacement. So right off the bat, let's say we can do this a couple of different ways. But out of the $432,000, what would you say Social Security will pay them? We're talking
with inflation, 100, 80 to 100, yeah.
Yeah. So that leaves us with 332. And if we just assume a safe withdrawal rate of 4%, we don't want to touch principal. 8.3 million is what we would need to produce 332,000. That's before taxes, though. So assuming you have a good mix of Roth and pre-tax, I think 8 to 8.5 million is a good number. Assuming the safe withdrawal rate or guardrails approach, obviously the income's going to continue to go up. So some interest and dividends will need to be reinvested so the portfolio is bigger to support a bigger withdrawal rate. So, okay. So you were working with a couple that's 35, Jamison. You give them the hard news that they're going to need let's just say $8.5 million by the time they're 65. What are we going to recommend they do to get there?
Dual income?
2 incomes of 250.
Yeah, so we can talk about this in a second. The breakdown, we'll come back to this, the breakdown of pre-tax Roth non-qualified.
Yep.
First, obviously, we're gonna max out for Roth 401ks, 403bs. If they have a mega backdoor Roth option, obviously want to do that. Say they don't.
Let's assume, so they're each banging 23 into the Roth 401k.
So it's 46, and that's Roth.
And then they've got a match of, let's just say their incomes are 250 each. So that's 7,000, 3% of 250 would be 7,500. So essentially, we'll just say 30,000 per year is going into each 401k. So 60,000 total for the couple. That's 5,000 a month.
Yep. And then on top of that, obviously, backdoor Roth IRAs, 14,000 a year.
Yep. So now they're saving 6,200 a month.
Okay.
Just doing the low hanging fruit.
And what is
stuff.
that? What is that? Just that? What does that get?
Yeah,
to?
in 30 years, so 6,200 a month, assuming zero to start, like they're fresh out of residency or fellowship, and they just from zero, like literally have nothing in the accounts, start saving 6,200 a month between the two 401ks and the backdoor Roths. Over 30 years, assuming a conservative, diversified asset allocated portfolio, 7% compounded return, at 65, they have $7.6 million.
So they're close, but not quite there.
Yeah, so we need to save basically an additional $800 a month. So we need a total of $7,000 a month to get to 8.5 and 8 million. So basically to get to 8.6 million. So this couple's got to save $7,000 a month. And now the nice thing is the first 5 is going to happen before they even see the money. That's going to happen before they see their paycheck just naturally in the 401ks. And the other 2 is what we got to help them save outside of the 401ks.
I'd say there's a couple of things to add to. Number one, obviously we want to save more than $800 a month because a couple of things. There's going to be things that come up pre-retirement. Maybe they want to buy a vacation house. Maybe some of that money goes towards college that's not in 529s. Maybe they do a home renovation. And the second thing, if they don't, so let's say 23 is coming in after the 401ks,
Yep.
and they save 800, say 1,000. So they're used to spending 22. Obviously, there's some college savings and the mortgage, but their money temperature may be higher than that 15,000 a month.
Yeah,
if they
then
don't
they're going to
save
retire probably with 18 a month instead of.
So that's the other thing that's really important is we could get them on track, but if they're used to spending 18, then that number, at retirement's going to be even larger.
For sure. So, I mean, sometimes you'd save just to control your money temperature because if you don't, whatever you save, generally, rule of thumb, it's going to get spent. All right, so let's go granular. So, $7,000 a month. So someone's bringing home 23, $7,000 a month. And now this doesn't always work naturally for a physician because maybe the first 10 years they're paying off school loans or they're on like a 10-year forgiveness program, or maybe they're done with 3 years and they have 7 years to go. But other things we have to save for is college. And like you mentioned, if all they save is in an account that they have access to, that thing's going to get blown up like every couple years. They want a new kitchen or a new furniture, or this house isn't good, so now we got to buy this house. Now there's transaction. The average person moves 8 or 9 times throughout their lifetime. So just a financial plan, we can't just assume a static, hey, they're going to save 7. Most likely this couple, they've got to save, close to 10. So again, 5's happening before they get the 23 in their bank account. And then out of that 23, I would say they got to save another 5 allocated towards, we'll call it the blow up account, where it's not saving, it's save to spend account. They're saving towards college and they're saving some extra towards retirement as well. So that would leave them with 18 a month. That 18 a month, generally recommend don't have your housing cost more than 30% of your take home. don't have your car payments more than 10% of your take home. So 4% of 23. I mean, that's about $9,200 a month right off the bat. And then if we're selling to save 5, that's $14,000. So they have another $9,000 a month to do life, to pay off their school loans and to, you know, discretionary spending, pay utilities, etc.
Let's talk about what are common, what are things that we see that blow this up? What's coming to mind for me would be like overspending on a house. What have we seen go wrong at a $500,000 income that makes this not possible? Yeah,
I mean, so the reality is, so median net worth, you can just Google this, age 65. I believe it's under $500,000.
It's like I just saw the update. It's like 320 something maybe.
It's like under 300,000. So the average net worth they say is around $1 million, but the median net worth is like under 300,000.
Yeah.
And this is after you've had your whole life of saving. So, I mean, life just happens. So yeah, 65. This is showing median net worth of 410,000, average net worth of 1.8 million. Huge difference between median and average though, because the average includes like the 1%ers. That could really skew that. I think the median is a more realistic example. So, you know, what blows this up? I would say in order, you mentioned house, number one.
That's probably the easy number one, yeah.
Yeah, because you know, you buy $1 million house, you're making $500,000. You're probably within the stress test because we either recommend 2 times gross, so 2 times 500,000 for a household would be $1 million, or 30% of your net take home. So 30% of 23,000 a month would be 6,900 a month. And that's going to, even with the high interest rates right now, if you put 20% down, you're probably within that, you know, that number.
A lot of areas of the country though now, like $1 million house is, you know, not, it's a big house, but it's like Pittsburgh, obviously you can get a reasonable house, but like there's a lot of areas in the country where, especially if you're a physician, you're around a lot of high income earners, like it's very easy to push that even higher.
Oh, no question. Yeah. So that's number one. I would say number 2 is just like not having a dialed in reverse budget. So, you know, you see 23,000 a month come in your checking account, you think, okay, I can afford this and that and that. But those things add up so quickly. And without a reverse budget, there's no accountability system. You're just going to keep hitting snooze on your plan and the spending is just going to add up. So I would say that's number 2. What would you say number 3 is?
Yeah, I would say just luxury purchases, buying a nice car, buying like things that are not totally necessary, just to try to live a higher, like you humans by nature, we want to fit into society, fit into the tribal instinct. So like if you're around a bunch of rich people that, you know, they have a lot of nice things, you're obviously going to want to do that too. So I would say that's a big thing.
You become the average of the people you surround yourself with. Yeah, that's big.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and then I'd say another one that could blow it up would be private high school for kids. That can be a significant cost.
Yeah, private K through 12 is like a college tuition in a lot of places.
Yeah,
yeah, no question. And then I'd say the other big one is just getting distracted with different investment ideas. Like these, my friends are doing this private investment and I'm going to put in a couple $100,000. Well, you know, maybe 1 out of 10 of those work out, but generally speaking, because we've tracked this, if you look at that compared to just normal public diversified equity investing, the boring diversified equity investing through like low cost ETFs is going to crush those private, and your friends are going to tell you about the one that's hit big, not the other 10 that
1 in 7 businesses succeed.
Yeah.
So
same for any kind of private investment.
You got 1 in 7 chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I would say that, you know, the other big one would be, you know, divorce.
Yeah.
You know, without having a prenuptial agreement, that
may be number 1 actually.
Especially for physicians. I mean, that's a big risk. If you're marrying a non-physician, make sure to have a prenuptial agreement in place because that can really put you back significantly. And then, any others that you see as a big?
Real estate, kind of what you said, distractions, like real estate, I would lump that into the private investments, just like things that you think are going to give you a really high return or an income stream, but they end up being a huge waste of time. I'd say that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, it's staggering to see how simple it is. I mean, you make this kind of income. You're a Henry, high earner, not rich yet. It's pretty simple. You save, about 25% of your income, and you're automatically there. Mm-hmm. You're at that $8 million number. People just can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's a proven. You just look at averages, and some people do it so well they like over accumulate, and then most people they just can't. They get so distracted, or they don't dial in these rules, and before you know it, 10, 20, 30 years is up, and you're in that median net worth, and you can't retire.
Yeah. So let's say if we want $8.5 million, what would be the breakdown of Roth pre-tax, taxable?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say at least a third Roth. So if they're both maxing out the Roth 401ks, that's going to be more than a third. But right now, with the low tax bracket environment we're in, we'd recommend front load those Roths right now. Obviously, the match is going to be pre-tax. So generally speaking, a minimum of a third tax-free between like basis and a brokerage account and Roth accounts, and the other 2/3 could be pre-tax. Because often the argument's like, okay, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I retire because my school loans, my kids are gone, my house is paid off, and I get that. But the way the government has these accounts structured, you have required distributions on these pre-tax accounts. You have dividends that show up. Your Social Security is taxed. This all works into your adjusted gross income and your modified adjusted gross income, which is the Medicare rates are based on. Before you know it, you may not need all that money, but you're still going to be paying a high tax bracket. So, generally speaking, a minimum of third Roth, or third tax-free, 2/3, tax later. Ideally, if it's me, I want half and half at minimum.
So I would say most cases, especially if you're 35 years old, Roth's probably not going to be around forever. The law could change, and then you can't fund it at all.
Yeah, so definitely front load that. So perfect. Well, there you have it. $8 million is the new $1 million. If you're a high income earning physician, at a minimum, it may be more than that. Now, if you're a single person, don't just divide this in half at $4 million. Jamison, talk us why.
They're not buying half the size. They're not going to buy a $500,000 house. Mm-hmm. So that'll probably be, maybe they're at $750,000, $800,000. That's one thing.
You're paying utilities. Those aren't a half just because one person instead of two person.
Yep. Let's see. What else? Kids, I guess, may or may not be in the picture.
So what would you say the number is we just talked through a $500,000 physician family, 2 kids as an example, school loans, all that. They need 8.5. If it's just a single physician making $250,000, we're saying it's not 4.25.
5 to 6 million would be the number.
Yeah,
and that'll generate what? Times 300,000 ish a year.
Yeah, so they got 6 million. We could say they're pulling 20 a month pre-tax easily, and then after taxes, blended tax rate probably about 17 plus Social Security is another 3, so they're clearing 20, which would be equivalent to like 8,000 or 9,000 a month today, which is close because that person's probably bringing home 11 to 12 a month in today's dollars. So yeah, I would agree. I'd say 5 million is the number if you're a single income earner making between 250 to 400. Then you need to target at least 5 million by 65.
And too, this is very much lifestyle spending based. Like we do have clients that, like you said, they oversave. Maybe they really are only going to need 10,000 a month, and that's really realistic. They obviously would need a smaller number. So this is general advice, but this can get more skewed one way or the other based on lifestyle.
No question. All right, well, there you have it. Look forward to catching everyone next week. Thanks for tuning in to our podcast. Hopefully you found this helpful. Really hope this is as beneficial and impactful to as many people across the nation as possible. So hit the follow button. Make sure to rate the podcast, and please share with any friends or family members that would also find this beneficial. Thank you very much.